welcome to Golf Training Hacks. Breathing is so important. Getting your breathing right is so important for your health and for sports. Now, what do I mean by proper breathing patterns? Well, you breathe through your nose, you use your diaphragm, and you breathe deep into your lungs, and you slow the cadence down. You don't breathe so rapidly. What's poor breathing? Well, breathing through your mouth, high up into your chest, and a more rapid cadence, more rapid breathing. That's a poor breathing pattern. Unfortunately, a lot of us have that breathing pattern, or at least a mix of that. Now, breathing does a lot of great things for your health. It improves the oxygen uptake in the system. It can improve your blood pressure. It helps you sleep. It also inhibits airborne viruses when you breathe through your nose. That's your first line of defense. And that's just to name a few things. But we want to talk about intra-abdominal pressure and breathing in this video because that's going to help you stabilize your spine, and that's what we're after in the golf swing, right? We don't want to hurt our backs. Now, the first thing I want to do is talk about your core. Now, let's think about this differently. Let's stop the ridiculous idea that your core is just your abs. That's just silly, okay? Your abdominals are part of your core, but your core is much bigger than that. And it's related to your breathing. Now, I want you to think about your core now as a canister that's inside your torso. So your core is a canister inside your torso, made up of a bunch of muscles and fascia and connections. So at the top of this canister is the diaphragm. A key aspect of this core, the intra-abdominal pressure, and nobody ever talks about your diaphragm as being part of your core. So we're going to call it our canister. Sure, the abs are part of it. You have the abs in the front, and then you have the abs coming into the side. In the back, you have your glute max, the big driver of movement, and then you have the muscles around your lumbar spine and your T-spine. Those are the muscles, I'll just draw it over this, those long muscles that run along your back. At the bottom you have your pelvic floor, the muscles of your pelvic floor, and you have your hip flexors. And your hip flexors, run through your hips and right into your lower back. Now your diaphragm's not floating in space. Your diaphragm is attached to your lumbar spine, it's attached to the bottom of your ribs, and it's attached to your xiphoid process, which is right about here. It's the bottom of your sternum. So all these things are connected. And there's an overarching connection of connective tissue called fascia. Now, fascia is like a network of cotton candy, of innervated cotton candy and shrink wrap, I guess you could say, that is a network inside the muscles that goes in the muscles and also wraps around the muscles. And the fascia moves has lines to the top of your head and down to the bottom of your feet. So it's all connected. Now, that's your core. You could add more things to it too, but let's just keep it at that. I mean, I just like to work on this now, but you could add your lats, you could add the other muscles. Anyway, these things have to work together. Your diaphragm has to function correctly. All these muscles have to be in balance and functioning correctly. They work together as a unit when you breathe. And they also work as a unit with your posture, and they have impacts on each other. So breathing patterns, excuse me, proper breathing patterns impact your diaphragm. If you breathe high up into your chest, excuse me again, through your mouth and rapidly, you're not using your diaphragm. Your diaphragm's a muscle. You have to load muscles to get them to work better. So by breathing shallow and quickly, you're not using your diaphragm correctly, and that's going to affect its performance, just like any other muscle. So now your diaphragm isn't working correctly. If there are imbalances in the muscles or weakness in the muscles, especially, hip flexors can affect things. The glute max, the weakness can affect things, but we're talking about posture. So if your posture is off, let's say that you are, dumped forward a little bit, you're contracted or you're compressing your diaphragm, and then that impacts your diaphragm function. So now you're setting up a cycle or a spiral. So if your breathing pattern is poor and your diaphragm is weak, that can impact your posture, because now you're breathing through your mouth, it's high up in your chest. That tends to have a very contracted defensive position. It's high up in your chest, mouth breathing is a very a frightened response. It's a sympathetic nervous system response. When you're frightened, right, you breathe up high and everything gets closed down. So that's going to impact your diaphragm. That's going to impact your posture. If any of these muscles are not functioning correctly, if your glute max is weak, if your hip flexors are weak or tight, that impacts posture. So again, now that's going to dump you forward, let's say, keep you hunched over, too much flexion in your back. That's going to compress the area inside this canister, and that's going to make it harder for the diaphragm to work. Now, what does this have to do with golf? In golf, you can't create abdominal pressure, intra-abdominal pressure, by really tightening up and bracing, like an Olympic weightlifter would do or a power lifter would do. You can't do it. You'd be too stiff. So how are you going to brace your spine with all that force coming into it? Well, it's called reflexive strength. You need a reflex response to all that force coming through the golf swing. What's reflexive strength? Reflexive strength is your body's, your neuromuscular system, your brain's ability to anticipate and react to force. So your neuromuscular system isn't just reacting to force, it's anticipating the force. Now, the first time you ever swing a golf club, your brain doesn't know what you're doing. It has no movement solution for this. It's just guessing, and it looks all herky-jerky and terrible. As you begin to swing a golf club more and more, your brain's getting the idea of what this thing is about, and it's setting up movement solutions, and those movement solutions are embedded as brain maps of neurons, and it's anticipating what you're going to be doing, and if things are working right, this system is working so that it's reflexively bracing your spine and other areas so that your spine is safe as all this force comes through it. Now, if these systems aren't working right, your ability to have a reflexive response to movement with forceful movement is diminished. So now how do we train this? Well, the easy way to train it, to begin with, you don't need push-ups, you don't need weights, you don't need a gym. You just need to breathe better. Breathing better is your first step to getting this reflexive strength and getting this canister to begin to support your back better, because you're going to naturally create the intra-abdominal pressure. And you're going to do a whole bunch of other great things. Now, what is the first step to breathing better? Well, breathing through your nose all day long, slowing down your breathing, and breathing deeper into your diaphragm. Now, there's a pretty simple way you can start working on this. You can use a breathing pattern where your exhale is longer than your inhale. Studies have shown that 6 breaths per minute is about what you want to do in terms of a good cadence. So to get that, you can inhale for 4 seconds and exhale for 6. So you can work on that as an exercise. Breathe in for 4, exhale for 6. And try to do that for a couple of minutes. Now, if you begin to feel like you're just wanting to breathe, well, that's, in a sense, maybe one of the things you need to get better at and be able to hold your breath a little longer. But if that becomes too difficult, maybe just go 2 seconds and 4 seconds and build it up to 4 to 6. But a real easy way to start getting this system functioning better is by just breathing better. So if you found this helpful, we'd love you to subscribe to our channel and give us a thumbs up, because we want to get our message out to as many people as possible about improving movement quality. So tell all your golfer friends, and you know what? It's not just really for golfers. A lot of people can benefit from improving their movement quality. So thanks for watching.